We're live in Banjul, broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. This is GRTS News at 2200 hours. And in our top stories of this evening, Cabinet approves a paper seeking a review of some basic procurement requirements for the Gambia National Petroleum Company, GNPC, at the 4th Cabinet meeting at State House. His Excellency President Adama Barrow sends tributes to the UK on the demise of Queen Elizabeth, celebrating the monarch's selflessness and dedication to service. The British High Commissioner to the Gambia, David Belgrove, describes the death of Her Majesty the Queen as a moment of great sadness for the United Kingdom and the world. In sports, prominent sports personalities across Africa pay tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth as the Premier League calls off weekend matches to mark the Queen's death. Away from home, death of the Queen sparks a wave of condolences from around the world as her eldest son, King Charles III, replaces the long-reigning monarch. Elsewhere, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres appeals for more international support for Pakistan as 2 months of rainfall floods large strips of the country. Well, that's the headlines. More news coming in just a moment. Do stay tuned. It's great to have you here. We begin with the executive because the 4th Cabinet meeting at State House discussed and approved a paper presented to them by the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy that sought to exempt the Gambia Petroleum Company, GNPC, from the Public Procurement Authority approval on the procurement of petroleum trading products. The decision, as revealed by the Minister of Information, Lamin Queen Jame, is necessary as the requirement impedes the GNPC's ability to ensure availability of petroleum products. Mohamed Jallo reports.
Discussions at the Grand Tent. Cabinet considered and approved a paper presented by the Minister of Petroleum and Energy, Abdul Job, which seeks to review some of the basic procurement requirements for the Gambia National Petroleum Company, GNPC. According to the Information Minister, Lamin Queen Jame, Cabinet granted approval to a request for the President to invoke Section 20, Subsection 5 of the Gambia Public Procurement Authority Act 2014 and exempt the Gambia National Petroleum Company from GPPA approval on the procurement of trading products.
According to the Honorable Minister, the application of the GPPA Act impedes GNPC's ability to ensure availability of petroleum products in country. He went further to remind Cabinet that other than the common expectation that GNPC is supposed not only to be profit-driven and a stabilizer of the market, but also important to be understood is the fact that energy is a national security matter and cannot be left entirely in the hands of the private sector.
The Information Minister also disclosed that Cabinet also approved a request to delegate its approval responsibility under the same section to a Cabinet subcommittee comprising the Ministers of Petroleum and Energy, Finance and Economic Affairs, and Trade, Employment, and Regional Integration.
A realistic critique looking at all the possible implications. The other line of authority that was also granted was the responsibility that Cabinet has in giving approval, which is also, by virtue of this acceptance and approval, delegated to the Honorable Minister of Energy and Petroleum, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, and the Honorable Minister of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment, all with the interest of enabling activities of the GNPC in a swift and efficient manner.
These decisions, Minister Jame concluded, are necessary to enhance the competitiveness of the Gambia National Petroleum Company and eliminate fuel shortages and its ability to destroy or destabilize the economy, thus threatening national security. Mohamed Jallo, GRTS News.
On a sad note and special coverage marking the death of Queen Elizabeth II, who peacefully died on Thursday at her Balmoral retreat in Scotland. Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II ascended the throne in 1952 and reigned for more than 70 years as Britain's longest-serving monarch. Being queen at the tender age of 25, Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor won fans across the world and played a big role on the global stage, representing UK in the global front and Commonwealth, which she led all through her reign. The Queen received 113 state visits and made 99 official trips around the world. Tributes and messages of condolences have been streaming around the globe, with world leaders, including the Gambia's President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, tweeting a message of tribute which reads, "I join the world in mourning the demise of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. She lived an exemplary life of selflessness, tenacity, and dedication to service. Gambians, join me to extend condolences to Her Majesty King Charles III, the royal family, Britain, and the Commonwealth and entire world." Moving on, Davil Belgrove, the British High Commissioner to the Gambia, also described the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as a great moment of sadness for the people of the United Kingdom and the world. The top British diplomat was speaking during a press conference at the British Embassy in Banjul, where envoys gathered to pay tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who died peacefully on Thursday at 96. Let's take a listen.
The death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is a moment of great sadness for the people of the United Kingdom and many people around the world. We mourn as a country. For the people of the United Kingdom, she has been a constant, a source of inspiration and dignity throughout our lives, a thread that has united us across generations. She served her country and the Commonwealth with devotion to duty, with dignity and grace for 70 years. When we marked her Platinum Jubilee in July this year, we celebrated a full life of achievement and true devotion to all those she served. We thank His Excellency President Barrow and all those here in the Gambia from all walks of life who have expressed their condolences on her passing. We thank them for their kind and heartfelt words. The crown has now passed to our new monarch, our new head of state, His Majesty King Charles III. The United Kingdom will now enter a period of official mourning, which we will hold until after Her Majesty's funeral. The condolence book will be available for signing next week, and we will be posting details about this on social media. God save the King. Thank you.
Still on the demise of the monarch, it will be recalled that the Queen has toured British colonies in Africa, and the Gambia is not an exception. The RTS News Desk had an interview with Hasum Cisse, the Director General of National Center for Arts and Culture, on that historic visit and the death of the British longest-serving monarch. Let's take a listen.
The end of an era in British life. She was like you rightly said, the longest-serving monarch, and it looks like it would be a very, very tall order to really outdo her, as far as longevity is concerned. She had, some special, attachment to the Gambia, and like we said in the introduction, during our tour of former colonies and in the early 1960s, she visited the Gambia just at the dawn of independence. That was in the first week of December, 1961. She spent 3 days here. Went to Njawara, I went to Brikama for a chiefs, conference, we had a very, very, mediatized, tour of the Victoria Hospital.
Right.
In fact, it was because of her visit on that day at the hospital that the hospital was, rebaptized the Royal Victoria Hospital, in honor of, her grandmother, Queen Victoria.
Right.
But much earlier in 1925, her father, as Prince of Wales, also visited. And then, her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, also visited in 1957. For 3 days also. So in fact, the husband, visited the Gambia before the Queen. And in 61, she and the husband again came to the Gambia. And in addition to that, the Queen was really at the center of, the entire, decolonization process, of the country. In fact, she signed, on our instruments of independence, for the Gambia to become independent on the 18th of February 1965.
Right, quite interesting events there, Hasum. Now, Her Majesty the Queen has served, 70 years on the throne, experiencing different geopolitical events spanning generations around the world. What impact did her rule have on the UK as well as the world as a whole?
Well, I think, the impact is really, very, very, positive, because the monarchy is a tradition. One, very sad thing is, to colonize us, they have to destroy, our monarchies, being that of the, Valdez in Colorado or the, Sonkos in Nyomi and so on. But, for Great Britain, and particularly during her, long, tenure as Queen, she brought stability, economic, stability, the IRA, troubles, all these were things that, during her tenure, she was able to, to solve. I think one of her abiding legacies is really her ability to keep, Great Britain, as one. Although, of course, she lost the empire for well. She lost a great chunk of the British Empire. But Britain as, a nation, as a country, remains. But of course, also with the Scottish, desire for independence. The jury is still out on that.
Right.
And really coming to the rest of the world, she symbolized, I think, tradition, and that is very, very important. Tradition and continuity. I think those are two things, she symbolized for Great Britain and for the rest of the world.
Now, as a historian, you have respectable knowledge about issues and events that have to do with the royal family. What should we expect in the coming days?
Well, already, Charles, has been declared, the new king. So from 70 years of having a queen to, long live the king now. That's what the British papers, will say tomorrow, in their tomorrow's editions. And also this reminds us, of, the summer of 1952, when her father died, suddenly. And there was a lot of mourning, in the Gambia here, because then we are, a British colony, and there was this, very, very strong attachment, to the UK. So Charles will take over, and then, I'm sure the coronation, will take place, sometime early next year, and then, she will, her, legacy will continue, through, I am sure, the, able hands, of King Charles. No, but really coming back to her, she gave, she had a very, very close tie with a political leader. In 2017, she granted audience, to President Barrow. And I think that was the first audience, with the Gambian president, in close to 30 years. Sadauda met, the Queen over half a dozen times, and of course it was the Queen also, who knighted Sadauda in 1966, knighted Safari Mansingate, 2 years later, knighted Sir Ali Jack, 2 years later. So the Queen had, very, very close ties, with Gambian political leadership, really dating back, to the days of independence, up to the, advent of power of, His Excellency President Barrow.
That was Hasum Sise, the Director of National Center for Arts and Culture, on the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Moving on, the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources joined partners on Friday to validate the Gambia's long-term climate-neutral development strategy 2050. The long-term strategy aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt viable measures to reduce the impacts of climate change. As Usman Mane tells us, the new validated climate mitigation strategy attracts a cost of $1.3 billion for implementation towards 2050.
Stakeholders in the country are aware of the impacts of climate change as currently being felt in our communities through severe floods and windstorms. These negative environmental and climate change effects inform the formulation of the long-term strategy of 2050 by Environment and Climate Change Ministry and partners to better place the country on a workable climate actions. The strategy is a follow-up to the country's NDCs, which could be submitted to the upcoming COP27 in Egypt. The newly appointed Permanent Secretary, Ali Njai, recognized the current state of the country, where the capital city and other communities are seriously affected by floods and other disasters. He said the strategy will serve as a guide to policymakers and the ministry towards climate change mitigation. Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Julde Sise, assured the availability and commitment to resource mobilization to the full implementation of the strategy.
The establishment of the Gambia Climate Change Fund is adaptable of drawing down and pooling multiple resources of international and national finance. Through this initiative, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs efforts in terms of supporting increased resilience is inevitable. More importantly, targeting the capacity building component of this strategy to be delivered in the soonest.
The Environment Minister, Rohi John Manjang, is convinced with the technical capability of stakeholders to finalize a document fit for purpose. She urged development partners to support government's climate actions.
The international committee, I know some are here, inasmuch as we are very ambitious, but our muscles are not very strong to implement some of these programs. Climate change demands heavy investment, and that heavy investment requires support. We are not trying to make that we are demanding for climate justice. No, that's not the least what we are saying. But we are saying that inasmuch as we are taking the responsibility that we've contributed very insignificant amount to this menace. But again, you also put up to your responsibility and support us. Support us in our solidarity to make sure that we make this world an efficient livelihood where we can all live comfortably as the genuine and decent human beings.
Ibrahim Jawara is the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Environment. He doubles as the National Coordinator of the LTS project.
The current cost is at $1.3 billion. That's what we need to combat climate change. And of course, this money would go towards reforestation, improved vehicles, maybe subsidies for gas to replace firewood and charcoal. I'm glad to say that we've got the Islamic Development Bank here today. They've shown great interest in the LTS. And I believe they may be one of the first of our development partners to actually put their money where it should be to fight climate change.
With the validated long-term strategy, officials are hopeful that the upcoming COP27, due to take place in November in Egypt, will provide an opportunity for big emitters who committed themselves to supporting the developing countries, including the Gambia, in their mitigation and adaptation strategies to achieve net zero by 2050. Usman Mane, GRTS.
Now, inner-city families across the metropolis and west coast are on high alert amid increased risk of disasters being triggered by heavy rains and windstorms. Now, powerful windstorms accompanied by heavy rains on Wednesday, it didn't come by surprise in the greater Banjul area. The aftermath has seen serious damages to homes and properties of people. Several families in Lamin Newtown have suffered great loss and are in dire need of general assistance. Details in this report. Different households have been seriously affected by yesterday evening windstorms with similar damages. Siakaba showed us the damage the wind has caused, blowing off at least half of his entire roof, thereby allowing the rain to have a free flow into their rooms, causing significant damage to their valuables. One of the inhabitants got injured as a log fell on her foot. Another woman was injured on the back.
Flat screen, amna ay télé, ay mobile yépp yaaxu nañ ci, ay wardrobe yaaxu nañ ci, ak amna ay white ceiling yu nekk ci yépp collapse dafa yaaxu. So bu ñu xaymee ñu gis ne daal lu yaaxu is from between $250 to $300,000 daal. Because soo gisee society roof bi ay trusses moo fa nekk.
We proceeded to the home of Aliou Sarr, whose entire roof has been blown away, causing him and his entire family of 20 to camp in their neighbor's room. Aliou begged for the relevant authorities to come to their aid. At least 100 meters away, natives of Sambukunda were also awakened in the early hours in the morning to a crashing roof. Jacob Sambu, the patriarch of the household, stated that they lost everything, but he is grateful that no one was injured.
When I heard the wind blowing, it just suddenly came. So when it just suddenly came, we just heard the noise, woo, 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 then all the roof was just taken off. Each and every one of us was in. Even my wife was in bed. So most of this dust and then the ceilings in the inside, some of them fall on top of my wife's bed. So I just rush up and then go and check them how they are, and I found them just woke up. I say, okay. Then I opened the back door. I say, let them just take the back door.
A few electric poles were also caught up in the disaster. Engineers from NARIC were working tirelessly to restore the power lines, which can also be a recipe for disaster, as electrical lines were lowered to the ground. These are just a few of many casualties across the country during windstorms, as the realities of climate change in the Gambia overpowers the climate action and adaptation, thereby making the whole country vulnerable. Officials of the Central Forecast Office warn that heavy rains are predicted on Friday evening. Reporting for GRTS News, I'm by Ibrahim Cham. The Gambia participates with funding from International Republican Institute is holding a two-day workshop at the Sadauda Keraba Conference Center for National Assembly members on budget oversight, public participation and principles of budget as it prepares them for the tabling of the 2023 executive budget proposal. Rohibite reports.
It is part of a mechanism to foster citizen participation in budgetary processes. The Gambia Participate is engaging National Assembly members on a two-day capacity building seminar.
The existing knowledge is already there at the National Assembly to ensure the budget, which is a very important document to the citizens, is being laid the way, or is being appropriated the way the citizens anticipate it. And most importantly as well, to increase the conversation between the parliamentarians and that of the citizens on the budget that is being enacted.
Budgeting helps promote financial stability, and to do that, there needs to be a better understanding of the process.
The efforts to strengthen the capacity of the National Assembly and other public institutions has continued to be a top priority for the International Republican Institute and its partners since the resumption of democratic governance in the Gambia, and we are ever committed to continue so that the reform expectations of the people of the Gambia are met, managed and overseen by the National Assembly through check and balance.
There is said to be a significant gap on citizens' understanding of budgeting, hence the significance of this training for National Assembly members.
Come November, December, Parliament will be engaged seriously in terms of budget scrutiny. And having this training would have been much better time than now, where you have new members that has even outnumbered the old members. So it therefore dictate or it therefore call or the need for us to have the capacity building in terms of budget oversight and also participatory budgeting as well.
During the 2 days, they will be taking through all aspects of budget estimates, including revenue generation, expenditures, and loans.
So this will enhance them in terms of looking at how realistic the budget is, how realistic is the revenue sector, and what are the contributions coming from outside, and what are also the debt burden on the country. So all these are areas that they would be exposed that do not approve a budget whereby all your money is going to servicing. They will also understand what is the GLF component, the Gambia Local Fund. How many percentage is really going in terms of financing our productive sector of economy, agriculture, the health, education. How much is going there? What is the connection contributing toward that?
This training is believed will equip the 6th legislature with the needed capacity to better scrutinize the 2023 executive budget proposal. Rohi Bitey, GRTS.
Now we head to the Upper River region, where the Ahmadiyya Muslim Students Association, AMSA, is holding its 8th biannual convention from September 6th to the 12th, with hundreds of Ahmadiyya students across the country attending the week-long educational camp. The biannual conference, taking place at the Nasir Senior Secondary School in the Upper River region, is meant to strengthen mutual love, understanding and commitment to the service of Islam under the theme, Education is the Key to Success. Our Upper River region correspondent, Seydou Kamara, covered the opening ceremony.
This is the 8th National Biannual Convention of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Student Association, with the theme on promoting education as the key to success. The educational and social gathering primarily bring together all Ahmadiyya students around the country to foster mutual love, understanding, and commitment to the service of Islam. Speaking at the opening ceremony, the principal of Nasir Ahmadiyya Senior Secondary School, Karamo Toure, welcomed participants and highlighted the physical, moral, and spiritual development opportunities of the educational convergence.
Education has to do with training that leads to the acquisition of knowledge and skills that are needed to provide essential services for the community.
The chairman of the organizing committee, Mobesir Ba, gave an overview of the conference and rules that govern the biannual Ahmadiyya Student Convention.
During this convention, we will have daily lectures on academic subjects such as mathematics, English, science, and also we are also going to have religious topics such as death of Isa, Khilafat, Imam Mahdi, and basic Arabic as well.
We, all the students, are encouraged to increase zikrillah, that is the remembrance of Allah. Because our beloved Hazur has always mentioned this. As Ahmadis, whether students or non-students, wherever we are, wherever we converge in each and every gathering, the primary obligation on us is to remember zikrillah, always to remember our Lord.
The representative of the Ahmadiyya missionary in the region, Musa Sane, described the development of good moral attitudes, honesty, and discipline as fundamental components of the educational camp.
Education and morality is the key to success. Not only education as a stand-alone thing. And this is why AMSA, you should be exemplary students in all the respective schools that you are, so that at least your attitude, your behavior, and your academic performance should attract your other fellow students.
The AMSA Women's Wing President, Maria Madrame, outlined the importance of the Student Convention, underscoring obligation on all Muslims to seek knowledge, irrespective of their agenda.
The overall aim of this convention is to develop morality and spirituality of the Ahmadi Muslim students, thereby becoming ambassadors of the Imam of the age. Since the first convention in 1999 in Mansa Conco, and then 2001 in Basse, and today, the 8th National Convention, other purposes is to motivate Ahmadi students in their academic endeavors. And as per instructions of Huzur, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nazir al-Aziz, they should strive to reach the highest heights in academic and professional pursuits, which women are not an exception to.
Chief Guest Speaker Musaba
said the meaning of education should be looked at critically from a broader perspective to redefine pathways and attitudes to learning and student development.
There's a problem of confusing two words, educated and literate. They are not the same. Literacy talks about the ability to read and write, whereas education is something completely different. It talks about the acquiring of skills, life skills, which can help you survive, live in this world. What skills? Any skills.
The 8th biannual Ahmadiyya Student Convention incorporates various activities including academic forums and community services such as cleansing exercise in Basse. The participants here are expected to firmly adhere to the rules and regulations of the convention, with male students disallowed from accessing female student dormitories, alongside sanctions on abusive language, fighting, and unethical behavior towards lecturers leading the educational camp. Seydou Kamara, reporting for GRTS News from Basse Upper River Region.
Let's now join the Central Forecast Office for an outlook of the weather conditions in the country. Time now to take our first break. Sports news is up next. Do stay. Welcome back. We start off with sports with this breaking news as the Gambia national under-20 team keeps their title defense ambitions alive as they defeated Mali 4-2 in a post-match penalty shootout in the semi-finals to advance to the finals of the WAFU Zone A Championship. The Young Scorpions first conceded in the first half but bounced back and leveled matters in the second half through Aliou Jiba in the 83rd minute, which sends the game into extra time before the Gambia eventually advanced to edge out Mali and set up a tie with either Senegal or Mauritania, who will be playing in the second semi-finals. We say congratulations to the Young Scorpions for reaching a back-to-back final. Now, Empty Land Football Club has won the Serekunda West Super Cup finals. The Estate Boys defeated their rivals Kanifing United from the south by a lone goal in the final to win the M.O. Fall Memorial Trophy. The Super Cup final marks at the beginning of the 2022 Serekunda West Nawetan football season. MS Jallo reports.
It was an all-Kanifing affair in the Serekunda West Super Cup final, as Empty Land Football Club of Kanifing Estate beat Kanifing United of Kanifing South. The tight contest was decided by a single goal as football enthusiasts trooped back to the Serekunda West Mini Stadium for the return of Nawetan football. The two teams fired blank in a very cagey first half. A cautious approach from both sides limited the game to few clear-cut chances. It wasn't until the 75th minute when Empty Land deservedly broke the deadlock. Brema Sanya found space at the back of the post to tap the ball into the net after Mansour Conte's initial shot was stopped by the goalkeeper. But the rebound found Ibrahim, who easily slotted the ball into an empty net for the decisive goal. Trailing by a goal, Cardiff United went all out for the equalizing goal, but were unable to find a way past the empty Lance defense, who held on to win 1-0.
It was not an easy game, because we are very close. Most of our players, they knew each other, so it was not something easy anyway. But thank God we were composed and we were able to finish the game, and that favors us a lot. We are so grateful, yeah.
We were not concentrating. The second ball is our problem. We lose all our second ball. That was our main problem. So when we are playing, you lose the second ball, I don't think you're going to win that game.
A perfect start to the summer football season for the Estate Boys, who lifted the Emo Fall Memorial Trophy. Omanes Chalo, Theatre Sports.
Well, congratulations there to the winners, Empty Land. But prominent sports personalities across Africa have been paying tributes to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who died peacefully at her Balmoral residence on Thursday. Ivorian star and former Chelsea striker Didier Drogba tweeted, "I am deeply saddened to learn of the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Condolences to the royal family." Nigerian star and Arsenal striker Nwankwo Kanu also tweeted a rest in peace message with a picture of him meeting the Queen at the Buckingham Palace during his time in England. The Premier League also called off weekend football matches as the sporting world pays tribute to the Queen. Now, the death of Queen Elizabeth II sparked a wave of condolences from all over the world. Elizabeth passed away peacefully on Thursday at the age of 96 at her Balmoral residence in Scotland. Buckingham Palace announced following the Queen's death. Her eldest son replaced her as monarch, taking the title of King Charles III, serving on the throne for 70 years. She was the country's longest ruling monarch and was remembered fondly by current and former world leaders who met with the late Queen.
They gathered in their thousands to pay tribute to their Queen. It's a loss the country knew would come, yet the sense of shock and sadness is palpable and profound.
And we've all known just one Queen. She's the person that we've always looked up to. Somehow, it's just a sad day. Just a very, very sad day.
And she pledged her life to this country, and she led this country with great reverence and duty and respect and honor, and I just don't know if there would be another like her.
I'm not a royalist, but I think she was a mother for us all, wasn't she?
She was the most wonderful inspiration for the country. And being here today, I'm honoured to sort of respect her. She just was leading as an inspiration for women.
The bedrock of British public life for the last 7 decades. The country and the Commonwealth have a new king and a new history to be made.
Her Majesty's government's priority.
But today is a time to reflect and mourn the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Now, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Friday appealed for more global support for Pakistan as 2 months of rainfall has inundated large swaths of the country. More than 1,391 people have been killed as Pakistan after record monsoon rains and glacier melt in the northern mountains triggered devastating floods. Unprecedented loss of property, livestock and crops have impacted nearly 33 million people in the country.
Still the initial days of the emergency, and our teams are in the field and they are looking at the needs on ground. At this stage, food is one of the major needs which is required because more and more people are affected and they have lost everything. So there will be a regular need of food for a couple of more weeks. Shelter is another major need. And then waterborne diseases are increasing, so medical assistance required at different affected population area in terms of treating cholera, malaria, skin diseases and other things. So that's another essential area. Sanitation facilities are also required because people have been displaced and they don't have the infrastructure which they had before. And then clean drinking water. So these are the top most essential needs at this stage.
Okay. Now, aid is coming in to some degree from abroad, but it's Pakistan's government that has to deal with this emergency directly. How is the government coping?
Government have been providing a very good support to the affected population, but we also need to understand that it's a massive flooding. There's a large population which is affected. And as I shared earlier, that there are things which are required one time, maybe like shelter and other things, but then food supplies are required on a regular basis. So that requires a lot of support, not only internally from the government, but also from the international actors. The government is also playing a very key role in terms of providing cash assistance to the affected families through an income support program which already exists in the country. But as an aid worker and for the international community, they also need to understand that it's a massive flood, and we are talking about more than 6 million people who need urgent.
Well, that draws the curtains for this edition of GRTS News. A quick recap of our top stories before we take leave of you. Cabinet has approved a paper seeking a review of some basic procurement requirements for the Gambia National Petroleum Company, GNPC, at the 4th Cabinet meeting at State House. His Excellency President Adama Barrow has extended condolences to the UK on the demise of Queen Elizabeth II, hailing the monarch's selflessness and strong dedication to service. The British High Commissioner to the Gambia, David Belgrove, described the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as a moment of great sadness for the United Kingdom and the world. In sports, prominent sports personalities across Africa have been paying tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as the Premier League calls for a week of matches to mark the death of the monarch. Away from home, the death of Queen Elizabeth II is sparking a wave of condolences from around the world as her eldest son, King Charles III, replaces the long-reigning monarch. Elsewhere, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has appealed for more international support for Pakistan as 2 months of rainfall floods large swaths of the country. Well, that's all we have for this edition of GRTS News. Many thanks for watching. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and have a pleasant evening.